Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Hale's 5th annual Ivy Insider. For those who don't know me, I'm Angie Jones-Glukov, Hale's Director of Program Development and Outreach. And my colleagues and I are really excited to be with you today because, well, we have the privilege of learning from our students every time we meet with them. And today we get to extend that privilege to you. For those of you who are new to Hale, actually, we were founded in 2012. And in the time since, we've come to be the region's top North American admissions counseling and test preparation group here. And to give you a little bit about the agenda for today, we will begin with a moderated panel discussion with our student panelists, followed by breakout rooms by area of study. And you probably received a bunch of phone calls from our counselors today, making sure that you had your breakout room of choice. But fear not, if you didn't get a call today, you will have an opportunity as we switch to the breakout rooms to make your choice. So it wouldn't be a problem. After the breakout rooms, we will come back together into the main room for a few moments for final thoughts from our panelists and a farewell. During the panel discussion, at the beginning, we do ask all guests to please leave your mics muted and to make note of and save your questions for the breakout rooms. Once in the breakout rooms, counselor moderators will help participants with instructions on how the moderation will run. And you will be using the chat box feature at that time for technology. And that's all for me at this moment in time. So let's get started with the panelists. And I would like to give the floor over to Hale founder and CEO, Peter Davos, and our senior admissions consultant, Ariane Kalingo.
Thank you so much, Angie, for the kind introduction. We're very happy to be here. As you said, for the last 8 years, we've been empowering students on this journey of seeking higher education in the US. And this is the 5th iteration of our very popular Ivy Insider panel discussion, because it's one thing for us to tell students about what it takes to get across the finish line. It's a completely other one to hear it directly from the students themselves. So we're very privileged to be joined by a group of very diverse moderators, diverse in their backgrounds and their academic interests, in their aspirations, and to have their honest insight as to the challenges that they faced. I think there's a huge misconception that just because a student has gotten into a Dartmouth or a Cornell or a Stanford, that it was almost a predetermined route that they were on that was not marked by struggle, doubt, anxiety. And that's really not the case. It's easy to see the end result, but not to see all the hard work that went into the steps that led them to that final destination. So today we hope to have a great conversation with our panelists and to have them open up. As Angie said, we will be breaking out into rooms, individual rooms, where you can ask as many questions as you'd like to the panelists that you choose to join. And before that, I'd just like to introduce my fellow colleague, Ariane Kalingo, who will briefly introduce each of the panelists, where they are from in terms of schools and where they're heading in terms of university. So with that, Ariane, I hand it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm happy to introduce our amazing set of panelists who are all excited to share more about their college admissions journey. So we're joined here with Amodini Chaudhary, who is a senior at the American School of Dubai and will be studying molecular and cell biology at UC Berkeley. Amodini, please wave to everyone. Next, we have Chris Anto. Chris is a senior at Cambridge High School, and he will be pursuing engineering at Johns Hopkins. Say hi, Chris. Emma Pereso is a senior at GEMS World Academy. She will be pursuing the Environment and Sustainability major at Cornell University. Please say hi, Emma. Manan Gupta is a senior at Dubai College who will be studying economics at Stanford University. Please say hi to everyone, Manan.
Hi, everyone.
Marwan Ali is a senior at the British School Al Khubayrat. Marwan will be studying international relations at Brown University this coming fall. Please wave, Marwan. Now we have Mira Bhatt. Mira is a senior at the American School of Dubai who will be pursuing pre-med at Johns Hopkins. Mira, please wave to everyone. Sarah Sharif is a senior at Nord Anglia International School, Dubai. Sarah will be pursuing computer science at UC Berkeley. Say hi, Sarah. Sonia Bendre is a senior at Oxbridge Tutorial College in Nigeria. Sonia will be studying engineering at Dartmouth College. Please wave, Sonia. Tommaso Vigo is a senior at GEMS World Academy who will be pursuing architecture at UC Berkeley. Tommaso, please wave to everyone. Great. Vedant Khanna is a senior at the British School Al Khubairat. Vedant will study computer science at Stanford University in the fall. Vedant, please say hi. And lastly, we have Yusuf Gobriel. Yusuf is a recipient of Boston University's Trustee Scholarship. Only 20 students worldwide receive this scholarship every year. He's currently a senior at GEMS Wellington Academy, Al Hale, and he will be pursuing business administration at Boston University. Yusuf, please say hi to everyone. Okay, great. I think we're all set for the panel discussion.
So fantastic. Thank you, Ariane. I know that many of the attendees are familiar with the challenges that many of these students faced with the corona pandemic when it came to distance learning, a disruption in standardized testing, and also an explosion, a tsunami in application numbers to selective universities, where we had applications, for example, at Harvard jumping 42% year on year. MIT's early application pool jumped 60%. Virginia, the University of Virginia, their application pool, their applications surged 15%. So we saw a very pronounced, shift and tidal wave of more applications for the same number of spaces, particularly at these highly selective schools, which typically don't have very large student bodies, especially with the exception of the state universities. So an already tough, proposition where you have single-digit acceptance rates was made infinitely more difficult this year, just given the circumstances. Now, all of the panelists are incredible high achievers, and I'm very sure that the number one question on the audience's mind is, how are they able to stand out from the crowd? Obviously, they had stellar grades and test scores, but they had to be different because many of these universities, 70% to 75% of the applicants have the grades and test scores, but the acceptance rates are between 3 to 7%. So there had to be some set of experiences throughout high school and through the admissions process that made them unique. So I'd like to ask one of the panelists on what made his application special. Manan, you conducted quite a bit of research over the last few years. And how were you able to source those opportunities? And how were you able to carry them out with the pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So in terms of research and exploring research opportunities, I think my school, Dubai College, it was quite helpful in sort of arranging some of these. So some of these are done by the UK exam board, like the EPQ and the HPQ, which are optional research projects which you can undertake in high school. And then also I made the effort to try and reach out to local professors in fields that I was interested in, and try and ask them if they had any opportunities to where I'd be able to assist them and gain a bit of experience to do it.
So you conducted research with an NYU Abu Dhabi professor. How many emails did you have to send out before you got a positive response? And then one more question, what is an EPQ and what was your EPQ on for those in the audience that maybe don't know what that is?
Yeah, so it was, I sent out about probably like 15, 20 emails before I got a response. First couple of responses were, sorry, I don't have anything, but eventually I heard back from someone who said they would be able um, to let me help them. And then the EPQ is organized by DC and organized by the exam board but like administered through the schools. So uh, yeah, the EPQ is effectively just a year-long project where you explore a topic of your interest. And yeah, so my EPQ is related to universal basic income and exploring how that um, how that could solve issues in the US of unemployment due to automation and technological uh, capital labor substitution. So yeah.
Okay, we're getting some feedback here, Manan. If you could just increase your voice a little bit because you're not coming through so clearly. I would say one thing that's critical that we see with so many of the high achieving candidates is that they are producing original research, right? Whether it's through their extended essay, whether it's through an EPQ, whether it's through an AP capstone project, they are going above and beyond just doing well in the classroom. Ariane, with that, I'll hand it over to you for the next question.
Okay, great. So Chris, how were you able to balance your 5 A levels with all of your other commitments outside of school? How did you keep up with your course rigor, and what are the secrets of your success?
Yeah, so thank you. So I had done 5 A levels, one of which was a self-study in further mathematics because our school didn't offer that as a regular subject and they had a limit of 4. But then, I knew that, further mathematics was because I had also applied to schools in the UK and for a lot of them, they kind of required it as a subject. And so, I had to take it, but then I also had 4 other subjects that I genuinely liked. So I think that's what you gotta focus on, take the subjects that you like. I wouldn't say, I mean, taking 5 A levels probably helped a little bit, but, forcing myself to take 5 A levels, out of which, 1 or 2 I didn't like wouldn't have ended well because I wouldn't have achieved the grades that I did eventually achieve. So yeah, I think that's the key. Take as many subjects as you can, but only the ones that you like. And don't force yourself to take things that you don't like, because there are a lot of different ways you can make yourself stand out, even in terms of academics. Even if you want to stand out in terms of academics, you can do things outside of school. But yeah, just do what you like is what I would say.
And what were the 5 A levels that you took, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I've done physics, chemistry, mathematics, further mathematics, and economics. Yeah, I mean, the economics was, a lot of people told me not to, but I really liked the subject, and it actually turned out to be probably the easiest for me to get through. So
Amazing. So I think with you, Chris, we have an example of, again, another misconception maybe that some students have that I've encountered every single year that I've been counseling students, whereas with the UK, having 3 subjects is enough. However, when you're aiming for top US universities, it's usually 4 A levels plus an EPQ. That's the most typical course combination that we see. 4 really isn't enough. And if you're a STEM student, then taking maths and further maths, right, is almost a given. Then it comes down to also taking chemistry and physics typically. But you had quite a few interesting extracurricular activities. You were not purely an academic. So can you talk a little bit about those, please?
yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so I think in terms of extracurriculars, like probably a few of the other panelists, I did a lot of things that was centered around research. So I had the opportunity to research with a professor in the US on mathematics, which was, it really kind of gave me that exposure that I needed to get into research. And then I'd also done a little bit of independent things. So that, and then there was also a little bit of a project that I had taken on with a few of my friends on sustainable water purification that also was kind of centered in research. So a lot of the things that I did was centered in research, but I wouldn't say that's a requirement. I know a lot of people who would dislike going through that, but there are like a lot of different ways to stand out. Um, so yeah, I like research, and that probably even affected what I wanted to do in the future. And right now I'm set to pursue a career in academia, probably because of these experiences. So yeah, I think research, and then apart from that, I think I had one pretty prominent award at Harvard University's Model UN, which also probably stood out. I think those are probably the bigger parts of my extracurriculars.
Incredible. Very tough to juggle all of those concurrently, but you did so with grace and with excellence. So kudos to you. We just have a couple of questions here. What is an EPQ? An EPQ is an extended project qualification. It is an original piece of research that the student pursues, very similar to an extended essay in IB. And then another question here is an A-level similar to an HL and IB program? The answer is yes, both are considered to be university level coursework. And both are 2 years long. Ariane, we have another question for Vedant.
Hi, yes. So for Vedant, how did you manage to create so many opportunities inside and outside of school? What were they and which were most special to you?
Thank you, Ariane. Well, I've always believed that if you like around the world, I mean, right now in the pandemic, it's just compounded the number of problems that we see in the world. And I think one of the main things I believe is that if I see a problem, I start trying to think of a potential solution. So, well, one of the issues that I saw in my school was that people who are academically adept don't really get pushed as far as they should be, or they don't get the kind of opportunities to stretch themselves. So I started the Olympiad Society within my school, which takes some of the best sixth form students, which are like the year 13s in our school, within math, science, and English, and it matches them to the smartest students in the lower grades, like grade 6 and grade 7. And it allows them to tutor them and give them opportunities to maybe represent the school or the country for the Olympiad. It's the inaugural year, so I don't know if we're gonna see any results, but fingers crossed. And outside of school, well, it's been a bit tricky this year, but I'm kind of blanking right now on the opportunity.
You developed an app, didn't you, for an interesting app that you developed from scratch?
Yeah. Well, I had the opportunity to apply for a job at quite an early age, which I was really excited about. And I was allowed to create an app for a local bicycle company to create customer bookings. And it was an amazing opportunity. And by thrusting myself into the deep end of the pool, I probably learned a lot more than I would have if I just took a course or something. And yeah, I guess the main thing to do is just keep your eyes and ears open for any potential opportunities. And if you don't come across any, then maybe start to look for them.
Okay. I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there, Vedant, as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as head boy and leading the inter-school debate competition at VSAC?
Well, as head boy, I have been responsible for kind of well, I designed the one-way system at our school. It was actually an application of a computer science problem where we looked at discrete mathematics to create the most optimal path in our school for one-way system. And there's also been a lot of more motivational roles, as this year it's been tricky to maintain morale through Zoom fatigue and all that happening. So those were my main roles as head boy. I've mainly just been, as you can see me, a floating head on a Zoom call. I haven't had the typical experience of a head boy. But yeah, it was interesting and it was definitely a fun challenge. I think Marwan here, who's also in the same school as I go to, has been more involved in the debate side of things as he's the MUN Secretary General. I did lead a global social leader sustainability goals virtual speaking competition, which was centered around fu- looking for people in UAE, students who wanted to speak about solutions for the UN sustainability goals. And it was a very, very cool experience to host and judge such an opportunity. We had the ambassador of Sweden to the UAE judge the competition among a few other notable people. And it was just a pretty cool experience.
Amazing. Before we move on, I have one more question. How did you get the filter of Baby Yoda, which you always had on your chest when we used to have our Zoom meetings together? Where can we find that?
Oh, that was just a Snapchat lens that I'd used to kind of spice up the monotony of Zoom for myself and for others.
Hopefully he'll make an appearance later in the discussion. I would like to see him again. Thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. Ariane?
Amodini, so I heard that you worked with the Ministry of Education and KHDA in Dubai. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, thanks, Ariane. So since about sixth grade, I'd been pretty involved with education at my school, and it really just started with a conversation with my then middle school principal. And it was pretty casual at first. It was just working with things around my school and, adjusting the homeroom and advisory sort of policies and things like that. And at the end of ninth grade, I was recommended to KHDA as sort of a student ambassador. And so I traveled to Dallas for an international conference representing sort of Dubai, the UAE at that. And sort of one opportunity led to another. And I have been involved with KHDA, which is sort of the Ministry of Private Education in Dubai, in leading conferences and assembling sort of different events and the like, and I'm part of a few councils across the UAE.
That's really cool. What was your favorite conference or event that you attended or participated in with them?
That's a difficult question. I think probably, so after I had come back from Dallas, we decided to sort of lead our own conference that was an offshoot of the one we had attended. And so I helped set up a day-long conference with 8 or 9 other students, and it was completely student-led, completely student-run for students. And it was about 8 months of planning and organizing venue to menu to attendees and all of that. That was probably my favorite.
Great. Peter, if you'd like to ask the next question.
So that's another great demonstration of leadership. And when you put together these massive events, there's so many moving parts. And especially with Zoom, we're dealing with technological unforeseen circumstances and challenges as well. We had a student who was talking about a virtual MUN conference that he participated in that kept getting Zoom bombed by outsiders that had the link. I don't know, Marwan, if you had any similar experiences, but maybe you could tell us how you were able to pivot in the virtual world with MUN, because I think that's an extracurricular that so many kids really enjoy and love participating in.
Thanks, Peter. It was a bit difficult to kind of conceptualize how we're going to do it, because I think one of the big important things about an MUN conference or any MUN event is the human interaction, and I think body language especially is a big part of any MUN thing, which made it. And I think with COVID and everything, it was difficult to organize inter-school things. What we tried to do though was we tried to, within our school, get the younger years involved, because as we mentioned previously, it was a bit difficult to keep morale up for everybody. So we tried to give them the opportunity to do opportunities to participate in these kinds of things. And I think it's important for them just also to build their confidence in a way, because I think making speeches at such a young age and in front of an audience that we had at the school is it gives them a little bit of experience, but I think also allows them to almost almost combats the weird feeling that COVID gave everybody a bit of detachment from everything else. So that was something I really tried to combat when I was organizing my MUN conference.
For conference participators, especially new ones, right? New MUN delegates, do you think it's almost easier to start out online as opposed to being in front of a big group, or no?
Honestly, I think it's much easier for more experienced debaters to do it online, because I think one of the huge parts of the conference is, for example, when I went to my first one at NYU, I learned that one of the most important things is meeting new people. Like, obviously the debating aspect is the most important thing and it's why you're there, but it's also the social interactions that you come to treasure. And I think a part of that is lost online. And for people who aren't as experienced MUN, who haven't really been to conferences before, it takes away a big part of the experience. But thankfully, the people who participated in our school took it in their stride.
Fantastic. And fingers crossed, everything will be back to normal in September by the time you go to university and you'll get back in the arena. Absolutely. It won't be digital anymore. So it'll be good to do battle in person once again. Fantastic. You know, the last few panelists have demonstrated what I think really is, you know, another unique set of attributes which goes against one of the other popular misconceptions out there, which is that you have to be spiky. Yeah, I don't know if some of you have heard that term, but there is, you know, essentially this misconception that you have to be absolutely amazing at only one thing, and that's your hook to get you into university, right? To the top universities, whereas you can actually be quite excellent or quite, you know, accomplished in several different fields, just as you've heard from the panelists, that they're not just, you know, focused on one particular endeavor. And that also makes a big difference. And we have Tommaso. Tommaso, I think you're another example of that, where you were participating in student government. You were also a mentor, right? So we see some common themes here. And you were also the male lead in several musicals. So you had quite a diverse set of experiences. And I'd like to know, again, this is another question, is how do students balance, you know, all of these different endeavors? How did you balance them? Because the number one kind of, you know, piece of feedback that I get, it's too difficult. There's not enough time. You know, I just can't be everywhere at once. But somehow you looked like you were. So how did that work out?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, as one of the other panelists said before, is to really go into what you enjoy and kind of prioritize what you enjoy and what you're good at in terms of extracurriculars. Because I know that some students tend to think that taking certain extracurriculars like MUN, for example, is really seen as like such a great thing for universities. However, if you aren't enjoying it, you're really not going to get the most out of it. And similar thing with like subjects in school, you just really need to make sure you're focused on what you're passionate about. So that way, like, even if you like don't have enough time per se, you will be able to prioritize everything that you do in a way that allows you to focus on exactly what you want to do and what will help you get into university. And there's also a saying that actually, when I used to do gymnastics, one of my coaches told me, it's there's no such thing as not having enough time. It's more so I am not going to make the time is like the difference. So you need to make sure that you're able to kind of make the time for what you love, really.
And that's so important too, because I also come across many students who think they have to do MUN. They have to do debate. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you could actually do something else. Like, you know, it's not this preset pathway that you need to take, right? Where MUN and debate are just two of those kind of activities that are prerequisites. And you know, for you, for example, too, musical theater. Not everybody does musical theater. I want to hear more about that, because I miss, you know, the Andrew Lloyd Webber show tunes and, you know, going to Boston's theater. I mean, what is your favorite performance that you are the lead in, and what's your favorite performance that you attended as an audience member?
So I think my favorite performance that I've attended as an audience member is probably the Broadway production of Wicked. I really, really like that. It's a classic. And right now, currently, we are doing kind of a revival. Me and a few of my fellow castmates are doing a revival of a production that we started last year, but however, it was closed down due to the pandemic. And it's called Little Shop of Horrors, and it's about this plant that kind of takes over the world through kind of manipulation of its owner. But yeah.
Incredible, very cool. And is that something you want to continue in university as
Yes.
a extracurricular?
Yes, definitely.
Phenomenal. See, this is great, and this is why I think it's so interesting that we have so many different, kind of students with different perspectives and different interests. So there's no, preset, kind of, again, one size fits all type of approach. It's about what you're actually good at, what you're passionate about, right, and how do you demonstrate that interest. And it doesn't necessarily mean collecting certificates or having titles in terms of leadership positions. It means, actually making an impact. So if you're tutoring younger students, if you're rolling out initiatives that actually exist or continue to exist beyond your tenure at the school, then that is something, that's a legacy that you leave. So that's very, very exciting. Ariane, you have a question, I believe, for Sarah, who has some interesting activities.
So Sarah is another student who's pursued many different extracurricular activities. Sarah, I know that you co-founded the Drone Club as well as the Computer Science Club at your school. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience at the International STEM Youth Innovation Competition?
Yeah, sure. So during physics class, me and my friend saw the BI drone competition, and we wanted to be a part of it. So we kind of just got a few students who were into STEM to be part of our group. And then after that, we decided that we would turn it into a after-school activity as well, so that other students could learn about it. And also because we learned new skills throughout the process. So students who were in design and technology also came to the extracurriculars, and they got to learn how we like modeled our drone and stuff like that. So we kind of just taught them how we did different parts of our report, and some other groups in that extracurricular joined as well. And we ended up winning the Rising Star Award, which was really cool. And then for the computer science CCA, we just students that were in the IB curriculum and that took computer science came, and we went through some extra questions and helped students in younger years as well, like in GCSEs, with some more past paper questions and stretch and challenge questions as well.
That's great. And aside from computer science, what other courses interest you? So for me, when I worked with you, it seemed like most of your extracurriculars dealt with like STEM, but is there anything like aside from STEM and like anything like aside from computer science that you do enjoy in terms of your extracurriculars?
I did music for a really long time. So I did piano grades and I was on grade 8. So I put that as well, and art. So yeah.
Nice. What kind of art did you do?
I did oil painting, but I didn't put that as a big part of my application process. I kind of just made time for that outside, but I did put music because I did a few grades and stuff, so I included that.
Okay, great. And Peter, I think you have a question for Mira.
Yes, I do. Just before I get to that, we have a question here that's a good one in the chat. And maybe some of you are wondering, why are we talking so much about activities? In the US, the universities care about who you are as a person, not only who you are as a student. So who you are as a person matters because the universities want to know what you will contribute to the environment beyond the classroom, whether it's through sports, music, performing arts, mentorship, volunteerism, community service. So that is what sets you apart. After you have your grades and your scores, right, they're really looking at how do you spend your time, how have you made an impact, and how do you explore your interests on your own. And with that, Mira actually had a couple of interesting initiatives when it came to both science and then being involved with her community in Kashmir. So maybe Mira, you can tell us about both of those activities.
Definitely. So thank you, Peter, for asking that. I'm someone who really is interested in a lot of STEM initiatives and medicine overall. Within my school, I just came from California. So over these past 2 years, I've tried my best to kind of start some initiatives at my own school in the areas that I just personally wanted to pursue. And I saw that there was a desire from other students to pursue those as well. So one of which was a science journal that I founded at my school. I really saw that a lot of students were interested in getting their voices out there and speaking on different technologies and research around the world that's currently happening in the scientific field. And I saw that there was an absence of that within my school, and there wasn't an area for people to really publish their own thoughts and ideas on research as well as current events that are happening in science. So I thought that it would be best to start a science journal and kind of fill that void by allowing students to have their own voices at my school. And over the past year and a half, we've been incredibly successful with it. And it's just been an absolute joy for me to see so many students reach out and be excited for the next issues to come up because they're just so interested to participate and share their own thoughts on a variety of different fields. So anything from biology to astrophysics or anything in between. So that in terms of science has been one of just the greatest things that I've been able to participate in. But even more than that, I personally found that with what's been going on in this past year, a lot of participants have been talking about this lately, but the pandemic has really filled a lot of the activities and taken away from a lot of people in the world. And I personally found that I'm Kashmiri and I'm from India, and I found that my community was struggling because we're a community who filled with refugees who faced a lot of hardships over the many centuries. And I found personally that my community was struggling with all that's happening due to COVID. And so I personally found that during the pandemic, I was free, I had time, and I love to tutor anyway. So I reached out to a lot of middle school students and asked them whether they would be free for me to tutor them in any form of mathematics in order to raise money for my community. And it was once again something that was incredibly successful because I found that students were lacking that sort of one-on-one experience with someone who could help them for their mathematics. And as well as that, I found that there was kind of a lack in providing kind of money and volunteering initiatives to help out my community at least during these times. So by being able to send that money and that infrastructure to my community, it was just personally rewarding for me to be able to contribute during such a hard period of time. And it's something that despite all the hardships of COVID this past 2 years or so, it's something where I look back on it and I'm just incredibly grateful that I was able to provide for my community as well. So thank you for asking that.
Amazing. So innovation and service, right? Which is another recurring theme. Yusuf, I think you have a little bit of a similar story in terms of raising fund for the your Coptic Egyptian community, as well as finding creative ways to stay busy and even stay profitable, I would say, during the pandemic. So Yusuf, tell us a little bit about your endeavors.
So thank you for asking, Peter. So about my community service, I come from a small town in Egypt, 2 hours drive from Cairo called Fayoum. Everyone there is extremely poor. Poverty is as high as it can be. 90% population is homeless. So the church I go to is a really old church. So with few members of staff there, we decided to organize like loads of sports events. And these sports events got like other churches involved, and all that money raised was given to all these members of the society, and we made meals and we went ourselves to give them meals. Some of the money was given to the government to build schools, and we started building one of the schools in downtown there, and it's actually going really well, as well as a more of like a fraternity club that I started as well with a couple of members of my church, about how we didn't just want to donate money, we wanted to give identity to these nameless people. So we'd either host Bible studies weekly, make football games, and like give them mini trophies. All these small stuff are what made those poor people really happy.
Incredible. And then you also launched a business, right? In addition to launching a very successful app. So another polymath. So tell us both about the business, and maybe you can put a plug in for your website in case anyone wants to visit, and then the app as well.
Oh, so during COVID, I realized that everyone was scared of uncertainty and everything was so uncertain in everyone's life. I think everyone here can agree that everything was so uncertain in terms of jobs, going online, school. So everyone faced that act of uncertainty. So I decided to create a clothing line called Unwritten Lines. It's about how your future is never set between two lines and it's extremely uncertain. And we aim to create like a society and a community where it's okay to be uncertain, it's okay to be worried about the future. And so far the first batch is nearly sold out and we launched our second season and most of the sales have already gone flying high.
Amazing. So go to the website, get yourself a hoodie, right, or a t-shirt, support your local entrepreneurs, and mention Yusuf's name. I think you get a discount if you know the owner. Yeah, fantastic. Ariane, I think you have a question for Sonia.
Yes, Sonia, can you tell me more about what made you choose the major that you're going to pursue in college and what sorts of extracurriculars fueled your interest in this major?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I have kind of always leaned towards extracurricular activities that allowed me to build something or create anything by coding or like actually building it through robotics. Um, a lot of the extracurricular activities I did were related to robotics competitions in particular. And it was just an interest that I wanted to continue pursuing at college, especially because I find that it helps you solve a lot of problems that you can find in the community. So for example, in Nigeria, we don't really have a great power system. We kind of rely on oil and gas when we can actually harness solar energy. So I wanted to figure out how to, in the long term, create sustainable technology that can be implemented.
Okay, great. And I heard over the pandemic you pursued different like online internships. Were they all STEM related? What is it like being a STEMinist?
Yeah, so I worked with the Pan-African Robotics Competition, and they basically aim to educate African students in the field of STEM through competitions that they hold annually. I would say that being a STEMinist it's a great experience because it feels amazing to be part of something that is sort of bigger than you and is kind of helping generations after you. But at the same time, it can be difficult. I did have experiences, and these were things that I wrote about in my application. I wrote about experiences that I had where, teachers would say things like, girls or women are not as superior as men, or would sort of not expect me to do as well in a science class, especially because math and science classes tend to be male dominated. So fighting against that stigma and those kind of norms was not the easiest thing, but it is worth it.
Incredible. I see a lot of nodding heads here. I think a lot of the students experienced maybe some of the same challenges there, the females interested in STEM. Emma, you have a similar set of interests when it comes to sustainability, and that's very close to your heart. And I think one of the reasons you're looking forward to Cornell is that you have the ability there to pursue a couple of different interests under the sustainability environmental studies umbrella. Could you tell us a little bit about your activities related to that field in high school?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I did choose the environment and sustainability major at Cornell, but I am thinking of doing maybe a double major in the College of Arts and Sciences, like relating it to government based on my extracurriculars, which I'll get into in a second. But I completely agree with Sonia. Like for me, I did the IB and I did HL math, physics, and chemistry, and those classes are heavily male dominated. Like my physics class, there were like 3 girls like in total with like 20 guys. Our math, there was like 5 girls with like 15 guys. So that was a challenge, but I really loved those classes, so I decided to pursue them anyways. And so outside the classroom, I pursued a lot of like leadership, mentorship, and also some science related extracurriculars. So I was student body president of my my whole school. And I also did things with mentoring, like in math and also like in my sports teams, such as swimming. And then also I tried to pursue a lot of like research related to environment and sustainability. So especially through my extended essay, like the extended essay, for people who don't know, is the big research project that you undertake during your 2 years in the last years in the IB. And for me, I did about like chemical technologies to address plastic waste in the UAE. And for people who are doing the IB or I know in the A levels you have a similar research kind of project, pick something that you're really interested in, because in that topic I was able to explore so many different things, and it's what led me to actually choosing environment and sustainability at the end, because I learned about all these different avenues of what like of how I can explore it more in Dubai and what I could do, like how I can explore it more in Cornell. And yeah, that's the main reason why I chose Cornell, because there's so many different classes at Cornell which I could undertake to further explore environment and sustainability there.
Incredible. And why did Cornell stand out for you in terms of being the proper place? Because there are so many options, right? I have some ideas, but why don't you share with us why Cornell?
Well, yeah, there's multiple. First of all, when I was trying to find the right school, I was trying to find a school where I could get interdisciplinary learning. So through each classes, and also being able to take multiple different classes in different like colleges, and being able to find out what I really like am passionate about. So based on academics, I thought Cornell had the most resources and options and classes that I could explore, but also the actual physical location, because it is really in the natural environment. There's so many like hiking trails and so many like you're really right in like the nature. And so especially for environment sustainability, I thought that the location would give me many opportunities. And also based on like the person I am, that I really like hiking, going skiing and exploring the nature, I thought would be the best place for me socially, academically, and just its lifestyle.
See, this is incredible. I think this is so useful for the younger attendees, so many of whom really over rely on rankings. And they think that maybe because a university is ranked, in the top 5 or top 10, that's where they should go, the highest ranked school they get into. But they don't think about all these other qualitative factors like what you just mentioned, right? The location, right? The physical setting, the resources. So it's such an important part of the journey to really understand where you're applying to and why, right? And you being just outdoorsy. Other students, of course, they look at Cornell's location, they say, I don't want to be there. It's just too far from me. But for you, it's wonderful. It's the ideal setting.
Yeah, it's 4 hours from New York City, and like I could have chosen a school right in New York City, but I wanted something more in the nature, like that kind of environment. When I was looking at schools, I was looking for that kind of campus environment where I'd be able to take that outdoorsy like part of myself and explore it more, but also have that like really strong campus environment to like meet really good friends.
Incredible. So lots of commonalities here in terms of what we heard from each of the students in terms of having a diverse set of interests, really having, deep participation in each set of those interests, caring, giving back, leadership, mentorship. And there's also one other commonality too that we didn't discuss. Of course, they're all excellent students as well. And that is that they all took standardized tests, right? There was a lot of discussion this year. I can't tell you how many times I got asked, do SATs still matter? It's optional. I heard that I don't have to take them. But every single panelist did take standardized tests, and it was difficult because there were quite a few cancellations. It was a very fluid and unpredictable standardized testing schedule where we didn't know if the tests were actually going to happen for a good 6 months. But I think you've all proven the misconception wrong that, tests didn't matter. Test scores are still relevant. They were relevant in each of your applications, right? They were submitted, and I think they obviously made a material difference to your admissibility. So Marwan, I think you took what's called, let's say, a more traditional route in terms of the number of times you took your standardized tests and how you prepared. Can you tell us about your journey with standardized testing throughout the process?
Sure. So I took a diagnostic SAT and ACT at the start. I I think I got similar percentile scores in both, but for me, I chose the SAT because the ACT has a science section, which I felt would be a bit more difficult for me to adjust to. I took the SAT. I took the SAT twice. The first time I got a score I was content with, but I wanted to improve upon. And the second time I got a score of 1500, which I took in September, and that's the one I chose to send off. And yeah, I think the important thing for me with the SAT though is that it's about structure. I think you really need to understand how it works. They don't just want you regurgitating what you've seen or trying to trying to fast forward your way through it, or they really want you to take your time to look through it, because there's a purpose for what they do to improve your critical thinking, your understanding of maths and English, and just getting study books such as the Barron's SAT prep book would really helped me in that process. Yeah.
Would you say that you get out what you put into SAT preparation?
Absolutely. I even have what's it called? I've got friends who demonstrated that to me. They didn't get scores they were content with the first time, and then they put absolutely everything into it, and they came out with 1550s, and sent those off to universities, and that really proved to me that you get what you deserve, and they really did earn it.
And sometimes it takes longer, right? And sometimes it takes only one attempt. But for you, I think you took three different tests, correct?
Oh, I only took two.
Okay, two, which is great, because if you prepare well, I think that's the number of times you should sit for the exam. You really shouldn't be sitting for more than two if you prepare adequately, right? If everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, I think it's the ideal range for me would be between 2 or 3. I think just because I think that I took my first one like a lot of people would take their second one, because a lot of people take their first one as almost their sort of diagnostic, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I think it varies for some people, and I think it all just depends on the time it takes for you to discern patterns within the tests.
Very good, excellent. And then some students start a little bit later, right, Ariane?
Yeah, so Sarah, I know that you started a bit late in your standardized testing journey due to your different academic and extracurricular commitments. What was it like prepping for the SAT?
In the beginning, it was kind of like hard, but I think the math section was fine. So I kind of just worked on the English a lot. And I was just practicing a little bit every day, which made a huge difference. And yeah, I did it about 3 times, but that's because the first one was a diagnostic for me, the actual thing. But yeah.
Right, and I just remember seeing you here at Hale all the time, prepping for the SAT. Did you practice every day? Did you do papers every day or diagnostic tests, or what was your routine like?
I did a diagnostic test, I think every 2 weeks, and then towards the end every week. But I mainly just did a full English section, and then every day I would just do at least 2 or 3 passages.
Okay, great. And did you ever take an ACT diagnostic, or did you ever consider taking the ACT, or did you only solely focus on the SAT?
I did an ACT diagnostic once, but I think I would have gone with the ACT if I hadn't prepped so much for the SAT, but I did it once, kind of rushed. But no, I think I would say that I mainly just did SAT.
Okay. And why do you think you would have chosen the ACT? For you, what was the difference?
The English passages for me on the ACT were much easier. So the math is always easier for me. So I think in that sense, I would have taken the ACT and then I would have done better on the English section, but it was fine at the end. So.
Excellent. I think so many students think that the SAT is the only option, where it's not. You have the SAT and the ACT, but you also have students, obviously we had SAT 2s, which have been phased out, right? Or they're being phased out internationally with the June exam. Mira, can you tell us about your standardized testing journey? Because I think it was a pretty rich and diverse one as well.
Yes, definitely. So I did start out with the ACT. I'm someone who is interested in STEM, so I thought the science section of the ACT would definitely appeal to me. And once again, after a lot of hard work and retesting, I finally got an ACT score that I thought would best suit my needs for the application. But even after that, I still wanted to try and take the SAT and see if I could make sure that I'm balancing myself out on both tests. So I did take one sitting of the SAT, and I felt that that was also great and it would just enrich my application overall. But it definitely was not a necessity to take both. I just chose to personally. And then when it came to the SAT2 tests, I was looking into BSMD programs, which are a combined medical program that's offered in the United States, as well as just very rich STEM schools who prefer to have stronger scores within the subject SATs. So I truly wanted to see if those specific tests would highlight some of my own strengths in areas such as biology and math 2, which is the most commonly taken math one, as well as other areas such as chemistry, even literature as well. And I truly wanted to take a different variety of those SAT2 tests because I felt that I personally was very interested in those personal subjects. I had taken the AP exams that would correspond to those subjects as well. And so I just truly wanted to take it to see if it would enrich my application some more and to add on to it. So it was a personal choice for me that many people don't do, but I truly found that it helped me out. And unfortunately, it is being phased out, but it was something that helped me to kind of grow some more when it came to both the AP courses that I was taking, as well as just the exams themselves within the SAT too.
Yeah, now I think the College Board administers both the SAT, the SAT2s, as well as APs. So there were so many students getting perfect 800s on math 2, chemistry, physics, that it wasn't really a good indicator of how proficient a student was in the subject. So they're one of the reasons they phased out the SAT2s is they want to promote APs, you know, which are a 3-hour-long exam, not just a 60-minute multiple choice one. One more question on standardized testing, and so maybe we should think about a student that really had to work hard and that switched around a little bit area.
Chris, I know that you worked very, very hard getting your target score, initially focusing on the SAT, but then you made the switch to the ACT. Can you tell us more about your experience and what you learned from that?
So I think this was like June 2020 when I decided to start, I guess prepping for, this was, June 2020. So I decided to start prepping for my standardized tests in June 2020, but then, they were both the ACT and the SAT were getting canceled left and right. So I signed up for both of them. And I guess my initial plan was to just, because I thought one of them would eventually get canceled and then I'd do the other one because my scores are pretty similar for both. But then in September, I had 2 registrations for the SAT, one for the SAT and one for the ACT. So I did both. I think I got pretty comparable scores. I think it was like a high 34 on the ACT, which was like a 1520 on the SAT, and then a 1540 on the SAT. So yeah, I wrote both of them once in the same month, and then I submitted my SAT scores to most places. I didn't submit my ACT score to many, but I did submit my ACT score to a few. But yeah, I wouldn't take both of them, to be honest. If I could go back, I'd probably just take one. But because of the pandemic, I didn't know which one would happen. So I kind of prepared for both. It wasn't too bad. I think, once you start to practice for like a consistent schedule, it's pretty, you get used to the tricks and kind of the format, and then it's pretty smooth sailing from there.
Amazing. Very good. I appreciate the insight on standardized testing. Now, I want to just talk about writing before we move over to the breakout room. So just to reiterate that, the students will each be joining a breakout room, and you're welcome to join whichever breakout room is of most interest to you. And in that breakout room, you can ask questions for 30 minutes. But before we just move on, I would like to just mention about the most terrifying part of the whole process for most students, which is typically the writing, right? 75% of an admissions officer's time spent reviewing the application is spent reviewing the essays. And this can be very terrifying for students to try to fit their story into 650 words. It's the part of the process that students look forward to least, but in many ways, it's the most rewarding part as well, due to the process of self-discovery and the evolution of the writing through its final iteration. There was one particular personal statement that I really liked, which was about Tom and Jerry and playing the piano. Marwan, do you remember why you chose that subject, or what were the motivations for you choosing that subject, and how are you able to bring in such a lighthearted approach to an activity that meant so much to you?
Well, I'll be fully honest. When I first started brainstorming my personal statement, Tom and Jerry was nowhere near the top of the list of ideas I had. Then I was talking to Nathan, and I mentioned Tom and Jerry in passing, and he found it quite interesting. He said, "Okay, just write a paragraph describing an episode of Tom and Jerry, just describing what happens and what your thoughts were about it." And I just wrote it, and from there, just discussing it, I discovered that my connection to it was a lot deeper than I thought it was initially. It did really lead me to my interest in music, which is also a big part of my application. And I really felt it tied together a lot of threads that I had. It helped me firstly connect piano to my personal journey and even to my major, which isn't something you usually connect with to music. And I just felt that it was really important for college admissions officers to see me as the person I am. I'm a bit more lighthearted, I'm a bit more quirky, and I wanted that to come across when I was writing it, and I felt like that was the perfect topic to do it.
I think you did a fantastic job. Everybody enjoyed reading your personal statement. It was very fun and very creative, right? And I think that's another thing that a lot of students think they have to be very academically focused, cerebral, try to impress the admissions officers with how intelligent they are. Well, they know how academically accomplished you are, right? What they want to do is hear your story in this piece of writing, right? This is your opportunity to let the admissions officers know who you are, what's important to you, and why, right? And you did a great job at doing that. Ariane, I think you have another one that you really liked as well.
Yeah, Tommaso. So I heard that you really enjoyed the writing process, and actually I think I had the chance to meet you at one of our personal statement workshops. What were some of the key writing lessons that you learned in the application process?
Yeah, so I think from school, you're kind of like hammered to write, like just bent into shape to like forced to write, specifically just talking about all the main points, being clear, concise, making sure you get everything you want to say out as quickly as possible. But with this, with the personal statement in particular, although you do need to be concise and get your points across, you still need to kind of put across your personality and like really be more creative with the entire process. As like Angie was my counselor that helped me with my personal statement. And one of the main things that she taught me is that you can't really be an engineer with your writing. You have to be more of an artist and not just like yes, no, yes, no. It has to be like just very flowy and creative and just really make sure that you're communicating yourself completely to the admissions team.
And how many drafts do you think you had of your personal statement in total?
Yeah, so we went through quite a few iterations. Like I think we started in mid-May in my junior year, and then we ended up finishing in August. So it was a span of quite a few months. And I think we went through maybe around the realm of like 5 to 10 drafts at least.
Yeah,
Great.
that's not
13
bad.
drafts. It was 13
13.
drafts.
There we go.
13 drafts.
I was about to say it's usually 10 to 12, so you were right over there. Amazing, incredible. No, also another great personal statement. Manan, yours was also a lot of fun. I think that was tough for you though, right? It was not an exercise that came naturally to you.
Yeah, so the personal statement, sorry, can you hear me better? I think the first time it was, yeah. So the first, it took quite a while brainstorming ideas for my personal statement, as I think with everyone, but also while writing the personal statement, I went through loads of different iterations. I had to try changing the structure around a few times, just making it sound the way I think it fit best. I think the general idea was there, but conveying like my personality through writing and through I guess an abstract concept, that is what took it quite a while. So yeah, like Tommaso mentioned, I started around May and I ended up finishing around September. So yeah, it was a long process, but quite rewarding.
You had to write a lot of additional essays for Stanford, right? How many additional pieces of writing did you have to produce just for that one university?
Yeah, I think it was 7 or 8 this year, and they're all pretty unique to I guess other universities, because I guess sometimes you have common themes with universities where you can sort of use the same essay and sort of change it around a bit for each of your universities. But yeah, Stanford's were quite unique. So yeah.
What was your favorite supplement question?
Probably the roommate essay where you have to write a letter to your future roommate. Because I guess that
details? You had
I
some
guess
fun
that
details about yourself there.
yeah. So I guess it's just putting quirks and stuff. So I mentioned like I mentioned my passion for music and drumming. I discussed like uh,
Give them the opening line.
how I don't like ketchup and that like just like I guess quirky or yeah, just odd bits and unique things of your personality. 'Cause I think that essay specifically just um, it lets you just like it lets you like have fun and actually enjoy your writing quite a lot.
That's fun. I think, Vedant, your essays were also quirky, and there was something in there about Shakira's hips not lying. What was the line that you had there? That one resonates with me.
Oh, Shakir? I don't think I had her.
There was something
And
about the hips don't lie. There was something about that. There was a line there about, maybe Nathan remembers it. Nathan, do you remember the line about the hips, the Shakira reference?
That one doesn't ring a bell to me, but there was an interesting short essay that involved Vidal, do you want to say it instead of me? The one about where you would travel if you could travel back in time.
Oh, yeah, there was. So Stanford asks you if you had to pick a moment in history and time to visit, what would it be? And they only give you 50 words to talk about it. So I'd chosen the first time science was talked about in public. It was like an opening of all these rich people who would usually practice science to the commoners, and they had some interesting theories like the health benefits of excretion or poop, and they also talked about the how Newton kind of thought that well, it was one of the first times they published something amazing where Newton said white light's actually made up of many colors, and he released this paper on optics. So you had a huge range of ideas of scientific validity. And it was just really exciting because that's the first time science was shared to the public and not just hoarded by the rich.
Incredible. And for your personal statement, I remember you finished quite early. So how are you able to get through it so much more quickly than most of your peers?
Well, I do enjoy reading, and I think one of the best ways to prepare for university writing is to read, because you kind of synergize other writers' voices and create your own. So I would highly recommend it, no matter what type of book it is. Reading is it's a dying art, and we need to revive it. So I think that was one of the ways I found writing slightly easier than maybe some of my peers. And I really, some parts of it, especially when I started off and it wasn't so monotonous after a while. When I started off, writing was quite fun because it's a completely unique style that you approach. You don't write about yourself in school. You don't write about yourself elsewhere. You're never allowed to be that vulnerable as you are in U.S. university applications. And I think it was really exciting at parts, and then most of the time it is quite a pain.
Interesting. I love the way the fact that you use the word vulnerable, right? Because the personal state, I've seen students cry. Yeah, I've seen them come to terms with personal issues that maybe they had suppressed for a very long time. It's a very powerful outlet, right, for self-discovery and for communicating, that self-discovery to someone who's reading it across the world. Very exciting. I think, Ariane, you have another personal statement that you enjoyed.
Right. So Emma, from what I heard, like your personal statement journey and just like writing essays was very meaningful for you. How did you grow as a person throughout the whole writing process?
For me, I wrote my personal statement about something that I was really passionate about. So it was like skiing for me, which I've been doing since I'm like 3 years old. And initially when I was trying to brainstorm different ideas for it, like I was really stuck because I was like, I have a lot of things that matter to me, but I'm like, what makes me like stand out differently? And skiing was really important to me, but then I was like, that's like everyone has like their sport kind of thing. Like it's not really that special. But when I talked more about it to like Peter initially and then to Angie, I really was able to like pinpoint something when I was really young in my skiing, like when I was like 4 or 5 years old, that really impacted me later on and like kind of like changed the person I was and how I addressed like any issue that I would face like in school or in my personal life. And yes, that's how I approached it. It was kind of difficult in the beginning to like the creative side of the writing because I'm more of like science based and like writing academic kind of texts. But especially with Angie, like the creative process, it really helped me open up to like writing creatively, and I really enjoyed the process at the end. I think I also had like 12 drafts or something. And so it was a really long process. I had like 4 or 5 months on it, but I really liked the end result from it all.
Amazing. No, it is a labor of love, but it is, don't if you are here in the audience and you're planning to write your personal statement, don't think that you will be able to get this done effectively in only a couple of weeks time or even a month, right? It takes time to brainstorm, to revise, to refine, to polish. And it's something that you want to be proud of at the end of the process. So it should take, several months for sure. Speaking of writing, Yusuf, I think you were someone that essentially wrote his way into university in many ways. I thought your writing was something that really set you apart and helped in, getting a full scholarship to BU, to being one of only 20 students, as Ariane said, in the world, who received a full cost of attendance scholarship. So for you, tell us a little bit about your writing and what did you discover about yourself through that exercise?
So the way I wrote was more just from the heart, straight up honest. I didn't want to add in extra stuff and try boast how good I am in the statement. I just wrote what came from my heart. And that's really what set me apart, because I think 90% of students would talk about what they did here, and try like put as much information to make themselves look the best. But I don't think admission officers really look for that because most people do that. But if you actually show the admissions officer you as a genuine person, what you've been through and how that shaped your future experience and what that brought out to you, that's what sets you apart from everyone else.
Okay, and what was that for you? What did you write about?
For my personal statement, it was about my swimming journey and how that ended due to prejudice from the Egyptian government. Because I was a Coptic Christian, I wasn't allowed to swim in the national team despite having multiple records. I don't know, here swimmers, I swam a 53 and 100 freestyle at the age of 15. So you know about swimming, so that made me not be able to join because of my religion, and I used that pain in my business and in my school life and high school, and that's I think what got me in those top scholarships.
And the thing is, it's never about what happens to you, right? It's about how you overcome and grow, right, through a certain experience, no matter what it is. So detailing that journey of growth and the ability to overcome adversity is critical, not just telling a story of, what happened. And I think you did a really great job there. I think Sonia, too, you did a really great job in tackling another issue, which is tricky, which is that of identity, which is almost the default option for many students in the UAE who, are third culture kids and confused about identity, don't know where they belong. But you were able to do it very masterfully. So can you tell us a little bit about that, your personal statement?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, identity is definitely a very popular topic among students. Um, and this was something that I initially struggled with, and my initial essays kind of sounded like every other student who was writing about living in a different place than where they were from. But after a while, I actually had this extracurricular that I was able to link to my identity. So I started a radio show in the senior year of high school. So I started planning for it in the junior year, and then in senior year I started a radio show which was an Indian Nigerian fusion show. So it mixed both of my communities, and we would speak about, or rather, we aimed at increasing cultural exchange and that sort of theme, and also just getting more creating more media content that focused on the context of developing countries. So I focused more on that aim of getting more content about developing countries out there, and use that to talk about my identity instead of focusing completely on my identity.
Fantastic. So for you, how did you come to terms with highlighting that in a way that was fresh and original? Let's say, rather than just saying, I'm confused, I'm Nigerian, I'm Indian, but I don't fully belong to those societies separately.
Yeah, so I think it was just having that unique extracurricular where I was allowed to explore those issues that struggle between the two communities, but in a way that I wasn't just talking about struggling between them, but I was actually doing something that maybe impacted a community, because we did have quite a lot of listeners. And it was I remember when I first actually told Ijaz about the essay. So he was the one who kind of warned me, like, this is really popular among students. You don't really want to do this because every admissions every admissions officer has read this before. But yeah, figuring out how to speak not just about myself, I think that was maybe the key, just talking about how my identity relates to what I want to continue doing in the future and what I already have done, not just the struggle of it.
Amazing. Kudos to you and to everybody. I think this is a piece of writing that you should hopefully treasure forever, that you will go back to and read and smile and maybe even share with your kids when they're applying to college. But it's definitely an incredible amount of work, but a very, very rewarding exercise. So you all did fantastically well. With that, what I'd like to do now is move over to the breakout rooms. There are lots of questions flying around here, some of them very good. Let us move to the breakout rooms where you can ask the individual students questions about their academics or extracurriculars, anything you'd like. And then we will do that for 20 minutes, and then we will just rejoin for a very brief wrap-up session and a final question, which is what advice do you have for the younger kids who hope to secure acceptances to universities like the ones that you have? So if that's okay, Alyssa, can we please migrate to the breakout rooms now?